would argue that home is more than four walls and a roof. In the next few minutes, we'll explore the reasons why. Lorna sits down with the ever-so-handy Mag Ruffman, who shows how small changes to a home can make a big difference to moods and attitudes. Then meet a faith ambassador for Habitat for Humanity, who explores the vital role a home can play in your spiritual well-being. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
Well, Mag Ruffman is one of Canada's familiar faces, from road to Avonlea to road to home repair. Mag has worked in the construction trade, becoming a home improvement TV host, columnist, and author. Please welcome Mag Ruffman to Context. It's great to have you here, Mag.
Thank you.
Oh,
nice to see you.
Good. Yes,
Where
that feels like you have had hammers, power tools. You got a great grip.
Right. I do have a good grip.
Yes, you do. Okay, and you also believe we all have a home improvement gene.
I do believe that.
Oh, I know some people very close to me who would argue, but tell me why you think that.
Okay, well, here's the thing. When little kids go out to build forts, and you can ask your audience.
Yeah. How many of you build forts?
Blanket fort,
yes.
snow fort, leave your hand up, tree fort,
yes, we've
leaf
done it.
fort. Did anybody not build a fort when they were little?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Nobody.
And does your mom say, go out and build a fort today? No.
Yes.
It's hardwired. The ones of us that are here now are here because of a gene that said build shelter.
Wow.
That's my theory.
Okay, so how?
I can't prove it scientifically, but really, when you think about it, this gets better. 2.5 million years ago, humans started using tools. Now, they didn't have language yet, but they started using tools, and the tools showed them how to predict something that was going to happen. So they began to be able to think in abstract terms. At the same time they used to learn to use tools, they also developed language in the exact same part of the brain. Broca's area, it's right about here. You can feel yours lighting up if you see somebody working with tools. It really does work. And so because if you're working with tools, it's the same brain area as sentences. If you ask your plumber to talk to you while he or she is working, they'll grunt because they literally, that part of their brain is used up in predicting the next thing that it's a 3D thing, right? That they're trying to create.
Okay, so it's hardwired in us.
It really is, and you know, the tradespeople always have a reputation for, well, they're not that smart, or they wouldn't be in a trade. It's completely the opposite.
Yes.
They literally can't speak while they're doing something creative with their hands. Any artist, you'll see an artist working, and they're, you know, don't try to talk to them, because then they're going to do bad work. Okay. And so don't talk to your plumber either, because the job will not be as good.
All right, so how important is our space, our home space, for our well-being?
You're not going to like my answer.
Okay.
Okay. It's all inside you. Wow. If you don't feel connected inside, your home is going to reflect it. And so many people approach it from the opposite direction. They're like, oh, I've just got to, like, I just need, you know, I need about $5,000 or $10,000. I could really redo this kitchen. And they got a real drive about it. And it's not about what's outside. Honestly, I've never seen it work. If you're the kind of person who just drives over decor, there's probably something going on inside that's disconnected. So it has to start inside. You have to feel a connection to your space. You know, it's like the experiences that happen in a home that give it that nurturing safeness.
So it has nothing to do about the budget you wish you could spend on the tiles in the bathroom.
I don't think so. I mean, I know so many people that grew up in beautifully decorated homes and the family was so unhappy. So what's that about? You know, it's inside you. It's inside you that it all starts, where you're creating a space that makes your friends feel comfortable, makes your family feel comfortable. It's not about the latest color. Every time I get one of those emails from some paint company saying, yellow is trending for 2014, I just delete it. It's like, you know, it's not about that.
Okay, so you are the queen of the home repair. Started long before all these home and garden TV things got going. What is your advice then to us as we approach this?
Make something.
Make something.
Don't buy it. Find the thing that you want to make. Look around your house. Is there anything you can actually make instead of buying it? And you know, it might be something you sew. It might be something you knit. It might be woodworking. I prefer welding.
Yes, you do.
Really love metalwork. You know,
stuff, yes.
But there was a man who used to come to the woodworking show every year, and he would do this terrible paddles. He would make these awful wooden paddles, and he'd make them into clocks and into
Careful, he might be watching.
No, he died, but it's okay. No, wait, it has a happy ending. So he would bring these beautiful things to me, and they, you know, they were so rustic, and I always encouraged him and said, well, you know, keep going with it. Then the last year I was at the woodworking show, he came back, and he brought a carving in soapstone that was so gorgeous. It just so moved me. And it was because he found his medium. He found the thing. And I said, John, you found your medium. It was never wood. Wow. It was the most smooth, beautiful carved dolphin I've ever seen.
So what does the perfect home look like?
The perfect home looks like heaven to whoever happens to have made it feel that way. Don't you understand? Like, I
do understand that.
It's the feeling. It's not how it looks. It's not about, I mean, feng shui is just a whole other set of rules to me. It's like, you can feel your way through it. You can feel, I'm looking at that blue color, it kind of gives me a bit of jazz, you know? But wow. You know, feel it. Your body will tell you every time if it's for you or if it's for somebody else.
Thank you for reminding us that it's about the inner connection.
It really is.
And it's not about the stuff.
No, stuffaholism is just like, it's what you do instead of building a home.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna come up with the staging expert in a moment who takes the stuffaholism out.
Okay, good.
And you also work with Habitat for Humanity. They're
I sure do. I know. I met him backstage.
Yeah, so stay with us.
Okay.
But thank you for being on set. Mag Ruffman is an actor, author, columnist, and TV host. And speaking of homes, let's broaden this conversation to include our home audience. Sheldon.
Thank you so much. And yes, I made many forts when I was growing up as well. Lorna, our question for you at home is this, or to our audience watching, the question is this. Do you feel a spiritual connection to your home? Is there some deeper meaning to the place you hang your hat? Or is it just a collection of walls and a roof? There are lots of ways to get your message from home to our home here in studio. I promise to read every message. Go out and build a fort, and after that, give us a call.
Okay. Well, when we come back, an expert in acquiring a home with no interest fees and an expert in a home with no clutter. Both great tools for peace of mind. And how are they making it realistic? That when we return. Thank you. Well, the emotional side of home ownership is affected by both accessibility and appearance. And to help us tackle that, two people deeply immersed in home buying, Enlo Wilson of Habitat for Humanity and Monique Days of Sold by Style. Welcome both of you for being here. It's great to have you. Okay, Monique, your journey into all this begins actually with a redo in your own home that you guys grew up in. Tell us how this began for you, Homes by Style.
That's right. It's a very personal journey for me. So what we did was our home needed to be sold. And, you know, when you've been in a home for a very long time, we'd been there for 9 years, and you accumulate clutter the same way you accumulate experiences.
Yeah, how many of there were you in the home? 3
of us in the home.
Of you.
So only 3, but it's a whole lot of stuff. So what we did was we just took some time and we had to go through and really edit. We had to take away all the things that we aren't currently using, and we had to just remove those items and stick with the bare minimum.
And what did it do for you emotionally to see the clutter go?
It is a removal of baggage almost. It is the taking away of things that can burden you. It is the taking away of sometimes experiences and things that are attached to those items. But there is this great relief that comes afterwards when you make that transition.
Okay, Enlo, you're here with Habitat for Humanity, and we really wanted to bring this up, the idea of we shouldn't take it for granted that everyone has the right to a comfortable even modest, but a comfortable home in Canada. What would I be surprised to learn about accessibility to home ownership?
You're right. You know, it is an invisible problem to some degree here in Canada. When we think about substandard housing in the world, we think of it very much as a crisis abroad. And in fact, 1.6 billion people do live in some form of substandard housing across the world. Here in Canada, though, the number is daunting as well. Some 3.2 million people live in inadequate or unaffordable housing in Canada.
Wow.
And it's tough to wrap our heads around, but that translates into roughly 1 in 5 families here in Toronto who contend with that condition.
1 in 5. Yeah. What is your definition of inadequate housing?
Inadequate housing would be housing that is overcrowded, suffering from various states of disrepair, unaffordable, just simply inadequate to the living condition of a family, and not meeting their needs, essentially.
You work for an organization that thinks home space is so important, it's not going to charge interest, and there's not going to be a profit made on home sales. How does this work?
In short, through their very robust support of community, supporters, philanthropists, volunteers. In a given year, we have about 10,000 volunteers who come out to build affordable homes with Habitat here in Toronto, across the city proper, but also throughout the country.
Yeah, you have 69 places where people are building homes with no interest and no profit. That's
absolutely
remarkable.
Here in Canada, absolutely. And the numbers change. More recently, my own market, Habitat Toronto, we have recently merged with 2 adjacent affiliates in the northern cities of Brampton, Caledon, and the York region. And the idea is that through that sort of larger combined catchment area, we would be able to service more low-income families in a more efficient manner and a shorter amount of time.
Okay. How though does it work that we're not going to charge profit? Like if I sell a Habitat for Humanity home, if I'm living in it, I can't make a profit on it?
So while we're getting into sort of the minutia of the mortgage structure, what I will mention, though, is that very basically, a family partners with Habitat initially through investing 500 hours of sweat equity, and that's in lieu of the down payment that so many low-income families cannot afford. They take ownership of the home then, and then over a 25-year term, they pay back the no-profit, no-interest mortgage. And very simply, the mortgage is no profit, no interest, because we choose it to be. And that's, in fact, straight out of Leviticus. It says basically, if your kin falls into difficulty, you take care of them, right? No profit, no interest. You do it out of fear of God, And it's a very human-centered sort of arrangement, and it's the arrangement that drives what we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you make that umbrella of kin is all of us.
Absolutely.
It could be, okay, well, we'll talk more about that, but I do believe we've got an audience question for you guys just coming up right now.
Hi there. My biggest concern about clutter, or my biggest problem with it, is paper. And it's easy to store paper, that's important, like, tax returns and things like that. But what do you do with paper that's maybe not as important, or, an interesting article from this magazine, or et cetera? Because paper, for me, produces the most amount of clutter.
Okay.
That is an excellent question.
Yeah.
We all have to edit, and it's so true. We have these stacks and piles of all these precious things that we have, and a lot of it is paper. We still recommend that you go ahead and you find a really great storage device. So whether that's a binder or a little storage bin, something that is limited to 1 item. And as soon as you get to filling that item up, that's the end. You get rid of the old items, and then you have space to fill in with more.
Okay. Monique, what is there in our interior space that so affects our energy and emotional level? How can space, style, design do that to us?
There is so much in our interior design space that affects our sense of well-being, our sense of wholeness, our sense of completion, even our sense of identity. So whether we're talking about colors, we're talking about patterns, we're talking about texture, we're talking about so many things that affect us psychologically. We know that color has the power to create impact. That's why in all the marketing materials we see certain colors used.
Okay, but Meg said in our first segment just now that it's an interior thing first. But you're actually saying, no, the physical thing your eye sees does affect what's going on.
I believe that there is truly a mind-body connect. And I think that your ability to center and stay focused on your plan and purpose in this life is key. But I believe that your outside environment affects you. So if you're living in a very heavily cluttered environment, if you are dealing with a hoarding situation, if you're dealing with something that creates cognitive dissonance in your life, that is going to negatively affect your sense of well-being.
Okay, Enlo, part of this sweat equity that you say people bring to their homes is this physical make something. Do you see it transform people, like we heard about the idea that making something actually connects you to a happiness?
Absolutely. I think the the sweat equity and the physicality involved in the sweat equity, it makes a family very much party to this asset that they now enjoy. It's one thing for a family to take ownership of a home and to be given something, right? But to truly value that thing, I think it entails a certain level of investment, right? And the partnership program is such that every member of the family could be party to that investment. And they might build their own home. They might help with one of the Habitat restores, which we also operate. We even have a program whereby children in the partner families, in exchange for good marks in school, will have some of the 500 ticked off, right? And so it's a process whereby every member of the family can appreciate the value of the work and the commitment, right, that went into the partnership and to the home.
How does our impression of home connect with that, with God's sense of well-being for us, Monique?
Well, we know that God's plans for us are to prosper us, to give a future and a hope. And our immediate environment at home is our sanctuary. I keep going back to that because it's so true. It's our place where we connect with Him. It's our place where we become centered enough to connect with the people around us, our families, our communities, our entire being as a nation. And it's such a great opportunity for us to make sure that, we're choosing colors and we're choosing styles and we're choosing an environment that's going to bring us peace. And if that means you bring in a little personal space where you can meditate, where you can journal, where you can read, that's important to do for you.
Okay. Monique, thank you very much. Enlo, we're going to get you to answer that question coming up right after this. But as we get deeper into the importance of house and home in our spiritual lives, it's time to get you involved in the conversation and give you a chance to win a pick from Lorna's book club. Sheldon.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Lorna, as we talk about the value of home ownership and of homelessness, a subject we touch upon a lot here, we have this question for you at home. Is home ownership a human right? I'm sure we all get a wide range of views from that, just from reading that one question. And you can reach us by any of the means you see on the screen there. And as I mentioned, and as Lorna did as well, you get a chance to get a pick, possibly if you make that call, to Lorna's book picks that you will see there on the screen. Visit the website, the icon's there waiting for you there. It's a great book. You'll see what it is right there. It's called The Theology of the Hammer by Millard Fuller.
All right, and next with Enlo Wilson, Faith Ambassador for Habitat for Humanity, the surprising results of seeing people pursue the miracle of finding space and community to call home. That's next. Well, over 4 million homes have been constructed by Habitat for Humanity using sweat equity and no interest rates. We're back with Enlo Wilson, Faith Ambassador, who has seen the miracle of home created that way hundreds of times. Enlo, that's amazing.
Thank you.
It's just a beautiful work you do at Habitat. But you actually think there's some very ancient roots to this idea of being well connected to home. Tell me about that.
Well, I think these days we tend to compartmentalize our lives. We are, separately great housekeepers and faithful Christians and, great, civic, members of a society, that sort of thing. I think it's important, though, to remember that in a first century Jewish Christian context, which is the environment where from we inherit a lot of our, our sort of faith tradition, the bulk of it, that compartmentalization did not exist, right? Spiritual well-being was very much intertwined with the notion of material and physical well-being, right? Mm-hmm. And with respect to the home, I don't think it's an accident to, when we imagine our homes, we imagine it and we recognize our homes as that sort of very solitary place where we first come to recognize ourselves in relation with God, right? But then also in sort of broader concentric circles, we come to recognize ourselves in relation to family, and then extended family, and then friends in the outer community, and ultimately the world, right? that very same thing could be said about our relationship to God, couldn't it, right? We initially recognize ourselves vis-a-vis our relationship with the divine, right? And from that point zero, we come to know ourselves in the broader world. So in that respect, I think the home is very much a sort of a material representation of our spiritual trajectory.
Wow. Okay, so if it's a representation of a spiritual trajectory, is it also a right? Should every human being have the right to have a home?
So it's interesting. It's a tough question to take on. If I make a parallel between the home and our sort of spirituality, right? Answering the question, does everyone have a right to their spirituality, is a bit odd, isn't it?
You
right?
say, of course.
I don't,
Yeah,
I look at home ownership or sort of having that place to call one's own as something sort of just natural, as something very much a given to sort of human identity. So whether or not we choose to protect that, legally, right, in sort of some codified law or that sort of thing is one thing. But the notion of home and the importance and the primacy of having a simple, decent refuge, to call one's own, I think it's sort of part and parcel with being a human being, right?
What evidence do you look for, or do you know intrinsically that God is in your house?
That's interesting. So, if we look at Scripture, right, we see that throughout, the narrative of this sort of sojourner, right, the faithful travailing through the wilderness in search of a place to call one's own. And we see that as early as Genesis, right, Adam and Eve right out of the garden. We see that with Abraham leaving Chaldea and searching for a place to call his own. We see that repeated narrative sort of throughout Scripture, and even in Christ's own life. He was born into homelessness, right? His parents searched for a place to give birth to him, right? And at the end of his earthly ministry, we see him mention to the faithful that the Son of Man has no place to lay his head, right? So, I guess where I'm going with this is that the notion of home, right, in the journey through the wilderness, finding oneself and finding one's relationship with God to ultimately landing in that place to call one's home, it's very much the concern of God. And I think with respect to that, as I said earlier, I think it's very much sort of normative or, programmatic to our own spiritual formation.
We're going to do this in our book club this week. We're going to give away to our viewers at home the theology of the hammer. What does it mean, the theology of the hammer?
So the theology of the hammer is a coin, or a phrase coined, by one of our three founders, Millard Fuller.
Millard Fuller, this is his book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
The other two founders being his wife, Linda, and Clarence Jordan, who was a Bible scholar. But very succinctly, the theology of the hammer, I think Millard came up with, having been in partnership with people all around the world, regardless of their faith background or their cultural background. He saw, first of all, that there was a universal need for affordable housing, right? And he saw that there was a universal charge to sort of make that possible for people, And I think seeing that very universal, importance of housing and creating housing for, those who are in need, it sort of resonated with him, and it existed as a fact over all of the, respective creeds and confessions and belief systems that we all adhere to, right? Housing is something that is critically important to all of humanity. And I would have to think that as a Christian, Millard saw, great inspiration in the fact that we can sort of make that possible for all of humanity using the tools of Christ's earthly vocation, the nail, the hammer, the wood sort of thing.
The theology of the hammer. Okay. Enla Wilson, Habitat for Humanity has been very inspiring, and there's more of that on our website on how you can get connected to Habitat for Humanity and how. Thank you for leaving us with several copies of The Theology of the Hammer for our viewers to enter to win at home. Thank you very much for being with us. Coming up, some final thoughts on what makes a house a home and why it's so important. That was great. Today we were reminded of the proven effect for well-being when the home we have is one which has a sense of control and stability. Are we really, as guest Mag Ruffman declared, hardwired with a home improvement gene? Have we an innate sense of well-being when we've crafted something, even a neat bed, that looks better? Our home can both affect and reflect who we are. And as a Christian, I'm struck first by the power of the home to reflect one's faith in action. Home as a place of kindness, a place to nurture others and ourselves. Well, I really need the security of home, and frankly, I'm bothered by the fact that God's Son was himself homeless during his ministry. Foxes have dens and birds have nests, Jesus said, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Jesus relied on others to meet his needs for home and declared that homes who gave hospitality were to be given a blessing. Well, whether or not it's a human right, having a home is certainly a gift to be used for improving our lives and the lives of others. And there's more on this in a book that inspires the organization that we featured today, Habitat for Humanity. This is their textbook on home is a theology, and they call it The Theology of the Hammer. And you can enter to win your copy at Lorna's Books. Just give us a few of your views on home and our topic today, and enter those on email, Facebook, or call us at 1-866-215-2080 and get in on a chance to win Theology of the Hammer. For all of us, I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching. Join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines.